Tonight, we're diving into the fascinating world of Greek mythology. As always, let me know where in the world you're listening from. Get cozy, settle in, and let's begin. Imagine sitting under the vast night sky of thousands of years ago as you gather around a crackling fire, the stars twinkling softly above. A storyteller begins to speak, sharing tales of mighty gods, brave heroes, and mysterious creatures that are both distant and eerily familiar. That's exactly how Greek mythology began. Stories were whispered from generation to generation, helping people make sense of the world, teaching them about life, and gently revealing truths about what it means to be human. These myths were never just entertainment. They were silently woven into the fabric of how humanity has understood itself for millennia. In these stories, gods live high above Mount Olympus. Heroes embark on impossible journeys, and ordinary people face extraordinary challenges. The ancient Greeks looked to these stories to explain everything from the lightning caused by the mighty Zeus to the changing seasons marked by Persephone's annual journey to the underworld. But beyond these explanations, myths offer guidance about love, courage, wisdom, and fate, helping people understand not only the natural world, but also themselves. You may not realize it, but these ancient myths still silently surround us today. When we talk about someone's Achilles heel, or describe a difficult task as Herculean, we often refer to these ancient stories, often without thinking about it. Greek mythology has left a subtle mark on our language, literature, psychology, and popular culture, shaping the way we think and communicate. In this video, we will explore the fascinating world of Greek mythology together, from the creation of the universe, through the exploits of gods and heroes, to the dramatic stories of people who dared to challenge their fate. You will meet Zeus, king of the gods, Athena, goddess of wisdom, Poseidon, lord of the sea, and heroes like the brave Heracles, the cunning Odysseus, and the brave Achilles. Along the way, we will dive into epic quests, tragic romances, thrilling adventures, and silent lessons that resonate even after thousands of years.
As always, there's no need to focus on the visuals or the screen. Think of this as a relaxing storytelling session, perfect for relaxing, unwinding, or letting your imagination run wild while you listen. If you're sitting down for a peaceful evening, doing some work, or just curious about these ancient tales, feel free to relax, grab some snacks, and let these tales gently guide you. So gather around the fire, so to speak. Together, we embark on this journey, stepping into an ancient world filled with mystery, adventure, and timeless wisdom. By the end of our journey, you'll have explored Greek mythology from beginning to end, and you'll understand why these captivating tales continue to speak to us silently thousands of years after they were first told. Let's dive in. Long before the first sunrise, before the first wave crashed on a shore, there was only chaos. But this chaos wasn't the chaos we might think it is today. There is no war, no catastrophe, no confusion. Just a blank void, vast and silent, stretching endlessly into the darkness. Imagine, at that moment, as an elder begins this story, their voices low but clear, tying together the first told story. From this infinite void, something extraordinary begins to happen. Out of the silence emerges the first being, Gaia, Mother Earth. She was vast, powerful, and alive in every sense of the word. She was not just the ground beneath your feet. She was the soul and body of the earth. As Gaia awakened, mountains rose from her form, valleys widened, and vast plains widened. She became the firm foundation of the earth, patiently waiting for life to flourish. But the earth was not alone for long. Soon after Gaia emerged, another being quietly formed from the darkness. Gaia herself emerged beneath herself, deeper than any cave or canyon. Tartarus, so far, so dark, it lay far beneath the earth. Tartarus was a shadowy abyss, hidden from view and forever cut off from the surface. Even to the ancient Greeks, its depths were unimaginable, its darkness absolute. It was a place where mighty beings would one day be imprisoned, but for now, it simply existed, silent, hidden, and waiting. But Gaia still harbored within herself the desire to create and shape the world. From her own being she gave birth to Uranus, the sky, who spread himself infinitely above her. Imagine the first sky, vast, open, vast and full of quiet majesty for the first time. Uranus completely enveloped Gaia, sheltering her under a dome of infinite expanse, filled with stars, moon, and everything we see when we look up at night. Earth and sky, Gaia and Uranus were together, eternally connected, but always separate, partners in the first chapter of existence. Yet Gaia's creativity was not finished. Without a companion, she gave birth to another child, Pontus, the sea. Water began to flow, calmly covering vast swaths of its surface. The endless oceans that stretched from its form, calm and powerful, at once met on the horizon under the watchful gaze of Uranus. Pontus was the embodiment of vast, unknown waters, a primal being who at the sight of his mother Gaia ensured that the world was not just dry land, but balanced by the power and mystery of the sea. Now, let's pause for a moment to clearly imagine these primal beings as the ancient Greeks might have. Gaia, the earth, is firm and patient beneath your feet. They were not gods in the sense that we usually think of them today. They lived on Mount Olympus and communicated directly with humans. Instead, they were ancient, powerful beings who silently shaped the fabric of reality. These four, Gaia, Uranus, Pontus, and Tartarus, were among the first great forces in existence, each with their own distinct realm. Gaia represented stability, the nurturing ground from which all life would soon evolve. Uranus was the infinite expanse, the realm of stars, planets, and celestial mysteries, forever out of reach but ever present. Pontus was the endless sea, deep and unfathomable, surrounding and sustaining the earth. And Tartarus was the quiet darkness of the deep below, a secret place where secrets were hidden that no one could understand.
Together, these ancient creatures shaped the world as the Greeks knew it, long before humans came to Earth. Each had a clear role, each silently dominating a part of existence, bringing balance and structure out of the void of chaos. Sitting around our imaginary campfire and listening to this story, we can understand why the ancient Greeks found solace and wonder here, in these stories. It was their way of understanding where everything began: the earth beneath their feet, the sky above their heads, the seas surrounding them, and the mysterious darkness that they never fully understood. Now, as these primal creatures became established, their stories would soon become more complex, involving their descendants, conflicts, and new generations of powerful gods and heroes. But for now, our story will focus only on this first act of creation: Gaia emerging from chaos, giving birth to Uranus, Pontus, and Tartarus, quietly setting the stage for everything that followed. These primordial powers were not worshipped or communicated with in the same way as later gods. They were more distant, powerful beings, respected, feared, and admired for their immense power, but also mysterious and distant,
rarely directly involved in human life. Instead, they represent the essential foundation of the world, providing the context for everything that would come later. They shaped the universe long before gods, heroes, or mortals walked the earth. Their presence is silently felt in every myth and legend as the silent foundation underlying all future stories upon which the universe is built. And so, around our ancient campfires, now under a sky filled with stars, we sit in silent wonder, imagining these beings and what it must have felt like to witness the emergence of the world's creation for the first time. This is just the beginning. There are many more stories to tell, but the mysteries of how the world first took shape, slowly and silently emerging from chaos, will always be the most powerful and profound to tell. Chaos, Gaia, Earth, Uranus, Sky, Pontus, Sea, and Tartarus. Long after the first beings emerged from the dark abyss, a new generation of powerful figures emerged. These were the Titans, powerful beings born of Gaia and Uranus, who came to rule over the early universe. Together, Gaia and Uranus brought into existence the 12 Titans. Each Titan possessed immense power and played a unique role within the early universe. Oceanus, the eldest of the Titans, embodied the endless waters that surrounded the earth, his vast and swirling rivers silently nourishing every corner of the world. Hyperion was the radiant Titan of heavenly light, illuminating existence with the warmth of the sun, the light of the moon, and the gentle radiance of dawn. Koios, the guardian of celestial wisdom, silently watched over the mysteries of the stars and constellations, while his brother Krios presided over the movements and positions of those celestial objects, bringing order to the night sky. Iapetus was a symbol of mortal life and its trials, representing human patience and resilience that would influence generations to come. Next was Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, whose silent strength was matched only by his deep ambition. Next to Cronus was Rhea, the gentle yet powerful, who embodied motherhood and fertility. Themis, the guardian of divine law and order, whose wisdom would govern the fabric of justice. Nemoses, the keeper of memory, silently ensured that stories and knowledge would endure. Tethys, the companion of Oceanus, who nurtured countless freshwater springs and rivers. Thea, whose gentle radiance made precious metals and gems sparkle, illuminated the natural beauty of the world. Phoebe, who represented prophetic knowledge and the deep truths of existence, illuminated the minds of both gods and mortals. Yet among these powerful siblings, Cronus was destined for a fate unlike the others. While the other Titans ruled their realms peacefully, their father and ruler of the universe, Uranus, watched his children with growing fear. Each child was strong, mighty, and full of potential. Too much potential in the eyes of the fearsome sky god. Uranus, deeply disturbed by their power, imprisoned Gaia's other children, especially the mighty Cyclopes, one-eyed giants of incredible craftsmanship, and the fearsome Hecatonchires with 50 heads and 100 powerful arms, deep in Tartarus. Gaia, heartbroken and deeply grieved for her children trapped beneath her surface, endured endless suffering. Their captivity was a constant torment that she endured in silence. Yet her grief soon turned to quiet determination. Determined to free her children and put an end to Uranus's cruelty, Gaia created a weapon, a sharp, curved sickle made of unyielding adamant, a substance so strong that it could cut even a god. She went to each Titan in turn, imploring them to stand against Uranus and free their siblings, but they all hesitated, fearing Uranus's immense power. Only the youngest but bravest, Cronus, agreed to take on this dangerous task.
Taking the sickle, Cronus prepared himself for the decisive moment that would change the universe forever. When Uranus next descended upon Gaia, Cronus was ready. Waiting silently and hidden in the darkness, he watched his father approach Earth. As Uranus stretched himself out over Gaia, Cronus struck quickly, holding the unwavering sickle and deeply wounding his father. With this single act, Uranus was overthrown. His power and reign were ended in an instant. As the defeated sky god fell to his death, he placed a terrible curse on Cronus, predicting that one day Cronus would suffer the same fate, that one of his own children would betray and overthrow him. Ignoring these dark prophecies and the brilliance of victory, Cronus assumed dominion over the universe. His rule was powerful, authoritative, yet calm and measured. With his siblings, he ushered in the era known as the Golden Age, a time of peace, harmony, and abundance. Under his leadership, the earth provided effortlessly. Crops yielded without human labor. Rivers flowed gently and reliably. And the world seemed calm and stable. Cronus married his sister Rhea, whose nurturing spirit and calm strength complemented his powerful but restless nature. Together they presided over an age in which the universe flourished, under gentle discipline, yet Cronus was troubled by his father's ominous words. Obsessed with the prophecies, Cronus became increasingly suspicious, always wary of threats to his children. Every time Rhea gave birth, Cronus, his heart darkened with paranoia, would instantly seize the newborn child and devour him whole, imprisoning his children deep within himself, in a place he believed no prophecy could reach. Rhea watched helplessly, her heart breaking each time her children disappeared into the depths of Cronus. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon were all swallowed whole, their fates unknown, lost in their father's womb. But when Rhea found herself expecting another child, she was determined to protect this child at all costs. As the time of birth approached, she secretly fled to the island of Crete, away from Cronus's watchful eye. There, in a quiet cave, hidden among the rugged mountains and in the shade of a dense forest, she gave birth to Zeus. With her newborn, Rhea played a clever trick. Wrapped in a cloth, she returned home and presented Cronus with a smooth, heavy stone as their new child. Blinded by fear and suspicion, Cronus swallowed the stone without hesitation, satisfied that he had once again prevented his father's prophecy from coming true. Meanwhile, Zeus was safely hidden on the rugged slopes of Mount Ida in Crete. High among the rocky mountains and sheltered by dense forests, the infant god grew up, carefully cared for by the gentle goat Amalthea. Her milk nourished him, giving Zeus strength and vitality. Her care became legendary, so much so that her broken horn became the cornucopia, forever symbolizing abundance and prosperity. But Amalthea was not Zeus's only protector. A group of fearsome warriors known as the Curetes undertake a sacred duty to ensure that Cronus never hears the child cry.
Whenever Zeus cried, the Curetes clashed their weapons, clashing swords against bronze shields, creating a mighty din that echoed loudly over the mountains. To an outsider, this racket would have seemed like mere military practice or a display of battle drill. Yet in reality, every sound of clashing metal covered the child's cries, shielding the hidden god from the relentless terror of Cronus. Zeus thrived under this watchful protection. Over the years, the small, helpless child grew into a strong young man, strong and determined. His upbringing in the rugged wilderness of Crete had molded him into a capable and intelligent individual. Every day he trained himself, climbing steep mountains and running tirelessly through dense forests. He learned from nature itself, studying the movements of storms, the power of the wind, and the subtle changes in the sky. Even in his youth,
He seemed destined to master the heavens, controlling the elements around him with instinctive ease. When Zeus finally grew older, fully aware of the terrible consequences that awaited his siblings, he began to quietly plan to confront Cronus and bring judgment on the captive gods. But Zeus knew that physical strength alone was not enough. Above all, Cronus was strong, cunning, and cautious. To defeat him, Zeus needed wisdom, cunning, and subtlety, which he found in abundance in the Titaness Metis, who was renowned throughout the world for her intelligence, cunning, and insight. Metis quickly recognized Zeus's potential, seeing in him a leader who could finally overthrow Cronus's tyranny. Together, they devised a careful, intricate plan to rescue Zeus's siblings. The herbalist and medicine expert Metis created a powerful elixir designed to reverse Cronus's cruel deeds. This elixir had the unique ability to force Cronus to release his swallowed siblings, restoring their strength and shape. Under Metis's guidance, Zeus disguised himself, carefully assuming the humble appearance of a young cupbearer, innocent, obedient, and completely beyond Cronus's suspicion. One evening, as Cronus sat on his throne, surrounded by his Titan siblings, Zeus quietly presented his father with a goblet filled with sweet wine, cunningly laced with Metis's powerful elixir. Cronus, suspecting nothing and feeling safe, drank deeply from the cup. Immediately, a fierce pain gripped him, marring his powerful form and forcing him into uncontrollable agony. One by one, he frees Zeus's siblings: Hestia, the gentle goddess of the hearth; Demeter, the wise protector of the harvest; Hera, whose power will one day rule Olympus alongside Zeus; Hades, the destined lord of the underworld; and Poseidon, the future king of the sea and storms, are all now fully recovered, powerful, and ready for revenge. Finally, Zeus and his newly freed siblings take a solemn oath to end Cronus's reign and restore balance to the universe. Thus begins the brutal and legendary Titanomachy, a terrible war between the old and new Olympian gods. The war intensifies, with each battle shaking mountains, flattening forests, and reshaping the earth. For 10 exhausting years, neither side has achieved ultimate success. The Titans and Olympians have fought relentlessly, wielding powers that have shaken the very heavens. Yet even Zeus realized that strength alone was not enough. Victory required stronger allies. He remembered Gaia's captive siblings, the Cyclops, and the mighty hecatomb Cyrus, who were immersed in the depths of Tartarus. Zeus boldly descended into that dark abyss, a place so foreboding that even the gods rarely dared to approach it. In the shadow of Tartarus, Zeus found and freed the grateful Cyclops and hecatombs, who eagerly pledged their allegiance, joining the battle with fierce devotion. To thank Zeus for their freedom, the Cyclops, talented blacksmiths of legendary skill, created extraordinary weapons. For Zeus, they created thunderbolts, fiery weapons of lightning that were so full of destructive power that no force could resist them. Poseidon received a powerful trident, capable of controlling the seas themselves, summoning storms and tidal waves at will.
Hades was given a magical helmet of darkness, which enabled him to move invisibly, striking from the shadows with deadly precision. Armed with these weapons, the Olympians charged into battle. The tide began to turn decisively, but the real game-changer was the massive Hekatonchires. With their hundreds of powerful arms, they hurled huge rocks and mountains at the Titans, who struggled to resist this overwhelming onslaught. The combined might of the Olympian gods, the Cyclopean weapons, and the overwhelming strength of 100 elephantine giants finally broke the Titan resistance. One by one, Cronus and his allies were captured and bound. Zeus, having won a hard-fought victory, judged the defeated Titans firmly but fairly. Cronus and his fellow Titans are cast into the depths of Tartarus, imprisoned in a dark and endless abyss, guarded by the ever-vigilant and fearsome Hecatoncheires. Their imprisonment marks a decisive shift in the cosmic order, ending forever the era of Titan rule. Freed from the threat of Cronus's prophecy, Zeus and his siblings establish a new divine order. Zeus himself takes the throne as king of the gods, ruler of the vast heavens, and ruler of the natural order. Poseidon becomes the master of the seas and waters, his mighty trident ensuring calm seas or raging storms at his command. Hades silently ruled over the underworld, becoming its harsh yet just ruler, overseeing the realm of the dead. Zeus's sister and last queen, Hera, the embodiment of loyalty, marriage, and divine order, governed the relationships and interactions between both gods and mortals. Demeter blessed the world with bountiful harvests and fertile fields, nurturing humanity and providing the food necessary for civilization to flourish. Finally, Hestia watched over the hearth and home, a quiet yet ever-present force of warmth and security within the family and community. The defeat of Cronus and the Titans marked more than just victory in battle. It represented a profound shift in the balance of the universe. The Olympian gods remade the world in their own image, establishing a new order that would endure for ages. Yet despite their defeat and imprisonment, the Titans were never completely forgotten. Their stories remain shrouded in myth and legend, a reminder of a bygone era of primal power, fierce strength, and fearsome ambition. Even after their defeat, their legacy lived on, affecting the Olympians and humanity in countless subtle ways. Thus began the reign of Zeus, and the age of the Titans came to an end, a reign that would reverberate throughout history, forever defining the world of gods and mortals. With the mighty Titans defeated and trapped in the depths of Tartarus, Zeus and his siblings had a huge task ahead of them: to rebuild the world and create order from chaos. After 10 long years of war, the time had finally come to bring peace and structure to both gods and mortals. The Olympians chose a lofty mountain as their new home, a place known as Mount Olympus. Its peak was so high, shrouded in mist and snow, that it seemed to collide with the sky. Here, Zeus built a magnificent palace, glittering with gold and silver, with marble halls and gardens filled with beautiful, fragrant flowers. Around the main hall were thrones, each throne uniquely designed for the god or goddess who would sit there. Zeus, the leader of the victorious Olympians, naturally became the king of the gods, ruling over the sky. His throne was at the very top, overlooking everything below. The Cyclopes, grateful for their freedom, created powerful thunderbolts for him, a symbol of his great authority. Although Zeus was wise and mostly just, he was also known to act impulsively, sometimes letting his emotions overwhelm him, just as humans would. He became the protector of justice, hospitality, and the law, which were of great importance to the Greeks. Zeus's mighty brother Poseidon took charge of the seas and all waterways. He ruled from a glittering underwater palace made of coral and sparkling gems, hidden deep in the ocean near the mythical city of Atlantis. Sailors respected and feared Poseidon, praying to him before setting sail, as his mood could quickly change from calm to stormy. With the trident, a powerful weapon crafted by the Cyclopes, he could command storms, waves, and even earthquakes, a testament to his power and unpredictable temperament. The third brother, Hades, took charge of the underworld, the dark place hidden beneath the earth. Many feared him, considering him cruel, but in reality, Hades was fair and calm, ruling only over the souls of the dead. Guarded by his three-headed dog Cerberus, the gates of the underworld led to shadowy rivers and caves, lit only by a pale light.
Hades moved invisibly through both the human and divine worlds, thanks to a special helmet that made him invisible, performing his duties in silence. With the sky, sea, and underworld ruled by the brothers, the other Olympian gods stepped in to play their own important roles in maintaining balance. Zeus's sister and queen, Hera, watched over marriage, family, and loyalty.
Sitting at Zeus's side, she kept a watchful eye over the human world, fiercely protective of couples and families. But beneath her graceful presence, Hera often struggled with jealousy, especially over Zeus's many affairs, which caused constant drama in their divine family. Gentle and caring, Demeter took charge of agriculture and the fertility of the earth. It was she who ensured the growth of crops and the change of seasons, which made her essential to human survival. People worshipped her through festivals such as the Eleusinian Mysteries, celebrating the cycle of life and rebirth. The quiet and gentle Hestia became the protector of the home and hearth. The brilliant and talented Apollo became the god of the sun, music, healing, and prophecy. Every morning he rode his shining golden chariot across the sky, bringing light and warmth to the world. The music of Apollo's golden lyre enchanted anyone who heard it, and people traveled far and wide to seek his oracle at Delphi for answers and guidance. Her twin sister Artemis took charge of the moon, the hunt, and the wilds. Artemis was fiercely independent, roaming freely through the forests and mountains with her deer and nymph companions. She protected nature and women, often assisting in childbirth, but punishing those who disrespected her. Artemis's silver bow symbolized both purity and power. The goddess of love and beauty, Aphrodite, was born from the foam of the sea near the island of Cyprus. Her extraordinary beauty captivated both gods and mortals, spreading sparks of passion and romance wherever she went. Married to the skilled but quiet Hephaestus, Aphrodite often caused excitement with her romantic adventures, especially through her secret affair with the warrior god Ares. Hephaestus himself, though born lame and often underestimated, became the greatest craftsman on Olympus. In his forge beneath the volcanic mountain, he crafted incredible weapons, armor, jewelry, and inventions with skill and dedication. Quiet and humble, Hephaestus earned respect for his unparalleled talent. As these Olympian gods took their places, they began to shape human life, profoundly influencing everything from farming and warfare to marriage and family. Together, their rich, complex personalities and relationships gave rise to countless fascinating stories that still remind us today of the human flaws and virtues of the gods. These stories, full of adventure and drama, continue to provide valuable lessons about life, love, and ethics, deeply connecting humanity to the divine world of Mount Olympus. As the Olympians settled on Mount Olympus, new gods came forward, each with their own special role in shaping the world below. Among these gods was Hermes, the swift, clever messenger of Olympus. With his winged sandals and traveler's cloak, he swiftly traveled between heaven, earth, and the underworld, delivering messages and escorting souls to their final resting places. Known for his cunning and charm, Hermes was also the god of trade and travel. He once famously stole Apollo's cattle, a playful newborn, demonstrating his intelligence from the very beginning. Despite being caught, Hermes managed to smooth things over with a beautiful lyre he had made for Apollo, which immediately earned Apollo's forgiveness and friendship. Then there was Ares, the fearsome and terrifying god of war. Unlike Athena, who favored strategy and planning, Ares was driven by chaos, passion, and brute force. He represented the harsh reality of conflict, that it was sometimes violent, messy, and inevitable.
The other gods often found him difficult to deal with, especially because of his fiery temper and love of battle. Nevertheless, Ares was deeply respected by warriors who prayed to him for courage and victory, understanding that he embodied the raw, unstoppable spirit of war. Ares' fierce counterpart was Dionysus, the joyful and unpredictable god of wine, celebration, and ecstasy. He took people away to forget their problems and find happiness, even if only for a night. Dionysus traveled widely, teaching people to cultivate grapes and make wine, inspiring wild festivals full of dancing, singing, and laughter. But Dionysus was more than just a party god. He also symbolized the idea of rebirth and renewal.
His followers believed that losing themselves in celebration helped them reconnect with their divinity and find deeper meaning in life. Together, these new Olympian gods completed a diverse family representing all parts of human life, good and evil, wise and foolish. They often behaved like humans, with intense emotions and complex relationships. Their king, Zeus, was powerful but far from perfect. His many romantic adventures often caused drama and controversy within Olympus. His wife, Hera, fiercely protected marriage and family. But whenever Zeus went astray, her jealousy led to countless conflicts. Poseidon, the god of the sea, was both revered and feared for his control over the seas and earthquakes. She was as stormy as the sea she ruled, capable of creating calm waters one minute and fierce storms the next. Athena, the wise warrior goddess born from Zeus's forehead, guided men in battle and helped them acquire crafts and skills. Apollo, the god of music and prophecy, guided men to the truth through his oracles at Delphi. Her twin sister Artemis was a fierce protector of nature, animals, and women, roaming the wilds and respecting the balance of nature. The beautiful goddess of love, Aphrodite, often found herself at the center of drama on Olympus, especially due to her relationship with Ares. Married to the calm and talented craftsman god Hephaestus, Aphrodite's love life often caused tension and intrigue among the gods. Yet Hephaestus was always focused on creating amazing things in his forge below Olympus, creating powerful weapons and beautiful works of art, demonstrating his resilience despite being underestimated due to his weak and humble nature. These gods quickly became a part of human life, with cities choosing specific gods to honor and worship. Athens built temples to him after offering them the olive tree, a symbol of wisdom and prosperity. Sparta praised Ares for their military prowess, and Corinth celebrated the beauty of Aphrodite with festivals and rituals. People everywhere prayed to the gods, made sacrifices, and sought divine favor in their daily lives. Zeus's rule also brought a sense of justice and morality. The stories often taught important lessons, punishing those who acted arrogantly and rewarding those who showed humility and respect. Apollo's victory over the monstrous Python at Delphi taught the triumph of good over evil, while Dionysus's expeditions taught humans the joys and dangers of enjoying life. Artemis protected wildlife, teaching respect for the natural world and its delicate balance. Still, life on Olympus was never entirely peaceful. Aphrodite's relationship created tension with Hephaestus, who often felt embarrassed or annoyed by her infidelity. Hera's continued anger at Zeus's relationship led to revenge and drama between Olympus and humans. Apollo and Artemis fiercely defended their mother Leto against Hera's jealousy, which led to further conflict. Yet despite all their disagreements, the gods realized that they needed each other. They knew that their combined power and unity kept the world in balance. Despite his flaws, Zeus was generally a wise and just leader, making decisions that affected both gods and humans. People deeply respected Zeus, creating festivals like the Olympic Games to honor him, and rituals like the Eleusinian Mysteries to honor Demeter, teaching about the deeper meaning of life. Eventually, the founding of Olympus became more than just a myth. It shaped how the Greeks understood their world and their place in it. The gods reflected humanity's emotions, struggles, dreams, and fears. Their stories, passed down through generations, helped people understand right and wrong, life and death, joy and sorrow. The Olympian family became timeless, their stories fascinating and meaningful, forever etched in the human imagination. After the Olympians settled into their glorious home on Mount Olympus, they turned their attention to the world below, a land that needed inhabitants to care for it. Of all the powerful gods, one was especially fond of these future mortals. Prometheus, the wise and gentle Titan, known for his compassion and ingenuity. His story will forever be linked to the creation of mankind, explaining why our lives, even now, are full of struggle, resilience, and hope. When the world was young and untouched, Zeus gave Prometheus and his brother Epimetheus an important task: to populate the world with living creatures. Epimetheus was eager to help, but unlike his cautious brother, he was impulsive and acted without thinking ahead. Quickly, he began to bestow gifts on all creatures. Some received strength, others speed, sharp teeth, thick fur, or wings. But Epimetheus had not planned ahead, and before he knew it, he had abandoned all good qualities, leaving nothing useful for humans. Seeing his brother's mistake, Prometheus stepped forward. He carefully took clay and water, forming each human figure with great attention and care. He gently formed these first humans, molding them with thoughtful hands until they became like gods, beautifully made, fragile, yet full of potential. Prometheus breathed the small spark of divine life into them, making them special, full of potential, capable of greatness despite their weakness. However, these first humans did not have an easy life. They had no sharp claws, no thick fur to keep them warm, and they were afraid of wild animals and huddled together, vulnerable to darkness and storms. Prometheus watched their struggles and felt deep sorrow. He knew they needed something powerful, something that could help them survive and build a better life. What humans needed most was fire. But fire was sacred, closely guarded by Zeus and reserved only for the gods. Zeus knew that if humans had fire, they would become powerful, creative, and independent, even powerful enough to challenge the gods. So Zeus refused to share it, hoping to keep humans dependent forever. But Prometheus could not bear the suffering of humans, so one night he secretly slipped away from Olympus, avoiding the notice of the other gods. He took a small ember from the sacred hearth and carefully hid it in a hollow stalk of fennel. In secret, he took the precious gift to the people below. When humans first saw fire, they stared in wonder and amazement. This warm, glowing flame changed everything. It gave them warmth, safety, cooked food, and encouraged them to build, invent, and dream. Fire became the heart of their new civilization. But when Zeus learned of Prometheus's theft, he was furious. Angered by this betrayal, Zeus inflicted a terrible punishment on the gentle Titan. He chained Prometheus to a lonely rocky mountain in the distant Caucasus, where every day a huge eagle swooped down and tore out Prometheus's liver. Every night, the liver healed, only for the eagle to return and repeat the torment.
Despite this endless torment, Prometheus never regretted his choice, bearing his punishment with dignity. Forever a symbol of courage, kindness, and sacrifice. Yet Zeus's wrath did not stop there. He wanted people to remember their weakness, so that they would know their place. Zeus devised a clever, cruel plan to remind them of their weakness. He ordered the skilled god Hephaestus to create the first woman from the ground. Her name was Pandora. She was stunningly beautiful, kind, compassionate, and irresistible. The gods gave her many extraordinary gifts. Aphrodite blessed her with charm, Hermes gave her cunning, and Athena bestowed wisdom and beauty. But Zeus added something more: a sealed box filled with secret troubles and sorrows, although Pandora herself did not know what was inside. Pandora was sent to Epimetheus, who ignored Prometheus's warnings about accepting gifts from Zeus and accepted her as his bride. Filled with curiosity about the mysterious box, Pandora struggled to open it. Finally, unable to contain her curiosity, she lifted the lid, just a crack, and immediately countless sorrows spilled out. Sickness, sorrow, war, famine, violence, and anger quickly spread throughout all of humanity. Horrified,
Pandora closed the box as quickly as she could, trapping inside a precious thing, hope. Although human life had always been marked by suffering and difficulty, hope remained, waiting silently, providing comfort and strength even in the darkest of times. As humanity began to adapt to life after Pandora opened her famous box, they entered different eras, each era defined by how mortals lived and interacted with the gods. These eras captured the highs and lows of human nature, from peaceful harmony to conflict, from bravery to sorrow. Each era was unique, providing valuable lessons that would guide humanity through time. First came the Golden Age, an almost mythical era of peace and contentment. Under the gentle rule of Cronus, people lived without fear, hunger, or pain. The earth was abundant, and people never had to struggle or toil. Fruit grew freely from the trees, the rivers flowed clean and clear, and the land willingly yielded its wealth. People knew no violence, and their lives were easy and joyful, untouched by sorrow or illness. Death itself was a gentle event, a peaceful entry into the afterlife. When their lives were over, these fortunate souls became benevolent spirits who watched over humanity, silently guiding and protecting those who followed. Yet all good things eventually changed, and the Silver Age began. This age transformed from perfect innocence to something more complex. Zeus now ruled from Olympus, and people began to forget their duty to the gods. They became careless and ungrateful, neglecting to make sacrifices or honor the divine beings who had given them so much. Their lives, while still comfortable, became filled with selfishness and disregard for tradition. Zeus, seeing their disrespect, was deeply disappointed. He abruptly ended the Silver Age, teaching humanity an important lesson about gratitude. While the spirits of this age still became honored spirits, they were forever seen as inferior beings compared to their Golden Age ancestors, their legacy forever marked by their failure to appreciate their divine generosity. From this disappointment arose the Bronze Age, an age defined by its obsession with war, power, and conflict. Humans discovered how to transform bronze into weapons and armor, and instead of using these good things, they turned them to endless war. This world was filled with violence, where strength and power were the only measures of value.
Of legendary heroes. Unlike any previous era, this time was filled with extraordinary figures whose courage and bravery became the stuff of legend. Mortals like Hercules, who is famous for his 12 impossible labors, Achilles, whose courage and strength defined the Trojan War, Perseus, who defeated Medusa and saved kingdoms, and Odysseus, who embarked on an incredible journey filled with adventure, monsters, and magic, all achieved fame. These heroes not only survived, they overcame formidable odds, faced monsters, challenged the gods, and completed quests that became famous for generations. Unlike their predecessors, many heroes who died bravely found eternal peace in the Elysian fields, reserved for those who demonstrated courage and honor. Here they enjoyed an afterlife of happiness and glory, forever remembered as shining examples of human potential. Finally came the Iron Age, the challenging era in which humanity now lives. Unlike previous periods characterized by abundance or heroism, the Iron Age was difficult. Life was filled with struggle, hardship, and uncertainty. People had to work hard, often with limited rewards. Conflict, injustice, greed, and deceit were common struggles. Yet despite these difficulties, people continued to persevere, holding on tightly to the hope that Pandora had left in her box. In this age, the gods seemed distant and rarely interfered. While mortals rely largely on their own strength and resilience, Prometheus's courageous gift draws inspiration from fire, which symbolizes the spark of creativity, ingenuity, and determination that defines humanity. Even when life seems extremely difficult, people of this era continue to strive to improve their condition, innovate, and maintain a sense of justice and compassion. Together, these 5 eras create a rich and complex story about humanity's journey, highlighting both our potential and our flaws. Prometheus's courage and defiance serve as a monument to human inventiveness and the determination to improve our lot, no matter the cost. His compassion represents humanity's boundless spirit of innovation and resilience. In contrast, Pandora's story symbolizes the complexities of human nature, the tension between curiosity and consequence, the struggle between suffering and hope. It teaches us that while suffering is inevitable, hope is a powerful force that can guide humanity even in its darkest times. Each age offers a unique lesson. The Golden Age reminds us of the value of harmony, simplicity, and kindness. The Silver Age warns us against arrogance, neglect, and ingratitude toward those who help us. The Bronze Age serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of violence, aggression, and unbridled ambition. The Age of Heroes inspires courage, heroism, and the pursuit of excellence, showing that individuals can rise to extraordinary heights through courage and integrity. Finally came the Iron Age, the challenging era in which humanity now lives. Unlike previous periods characterized by abundance or heroism, the Iron Age was difficult. Life was filled with struggle, hardship, and uncertainty. People had to work hard, often with limited rewards. Conflict, injustice, greed, and deceit were common struggles. Yet despite these difficulties, people continued to persevere, holding on tightly to the hope that Pandora had left in her box. In this age, the gods seemed distant and rarely interfered. While mortals rely largely on their own strength and resilience, Prometheus's courageous gift draws inspiration from fire, which symbolizes the spark of creativity, ingenuity, and determination that defines humanity. Even when life seems extremely difficult, people of this era continue to strive to improve their condition, innovate, and maintain a sense of justice and compassion.
Together, these 5 eras create a rich and complex story about humanity's journey, highlighting both our potential and our flaws. Prometheus's courage and defiance serve as a monument to human inventiveness and the determination to improve our lot, no matter the cost. His compassion represents humanity's boundless spirit of innovation and resilience. In contrast, Pandora's story symbolizes the complexities of human nature, the tension between curiosity and consequence, the struggle between suffering and hope. It teaches us that while suffering is inevitable, hope is a powerful force that can guide humanity even in its darkest times. Each age offers a unique lesson. The Golden Age reminds us of the value of harmony, simplicity, and kindness. The Silver Age warns us against arrogance, neglect, and ingratitude toward those who help us. The Bronze Age serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of violence, aggression, and unbridled ambition. The Age of Heroes inspires courage, heroism, and the pursuit of excellence, showing that individuals can rise to extraordinary heights through courage and integrity. Finally, the Iron Age reflects the reality of human life, marked by complexity, struggle, and moral ambiguity, but also resilience, adaptability, and hope. Long after Zeus and his siblings ascended to the throne on Olympus, the underworld began to take shape, filled with people, animals, and mysterious creatures. But soon Zeus noticed that people were becoming greedy, cruel, and disrespectful to the gods. In a rage, he decided to start over and wash humanity away in a great flood. Yet Zeus did not want all the people to go. He remembered two kind and respectful people, Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha, who still respected the gods and treated others well. Deucalion was the son of Prometheus, who created humans from clay and gifted them with the precious secret of fire. Pyrrha was the gentle and wise daughter of Prometheus's brother Epimetheus and Pandora, the woman who once opened a mysterious box and unwittingly caused trouble on Earth. Despite their complex heritage, Deucalion and Pyrrha were thoughtful, honest, and kind people, known far and wide for their humility and deep respect for the gods. They were the perfect choice to escape Zeus's impending wrath. Prometheus was still chained to a desolate mountaintop as punishment for helping mankind, watching the sky darken and knowing what Zeus was planning. Desperate to save his beloved son, Prometheus secretly found a way to convey his warning to Deucalion, urging him to prepare immediately. With complete trust in his father, Deucalion quickly set to work. Building a huge wooden ark, more than just a boat, it was sturdy, tightly sealed, and carefully constructed to withstand the wrath that Zeus was about to unleash. He worked tirelessly, knowing that the ark would be his and Pyrrha's only hope. Soon black storm clouds came and blocked out the sun.
Their wooden chest, riding the waves above the endless stormy sea. After 9 long, tiring days, the rain finally began to ease, and soon the floodwaters slowly receded. Finally, their chest came to rest on the quiet, high peak of Mount Parnassus. When they emerged, Deucalion and Pyrrha looked around in shock and sadness. The entire world was quiet and empty, covered in mud and rubble, completely silent except for the trickle of water. As they searched desperately for signs of life, screaming in vain, they quickly realized that they were truly alone, the last 2 people on Earth. Broken-hearted and unsure of what to do next, Deucalion and Pyrrha felt overwhelmed by their loneliness. They knew that without guidance they could not rebuild humanity on their own. Together, they traveled down the mountain to a sacred place, the temple of Themis, the wise goddess of justice and prophecy. Kneeling before her altar, they sought advice on how to restore life to the empty world. Deeply moved by their heartfelt plea, Themis replied with a mysterious command: "Leave your mother's bones behind." At first, Deucalion and Pyrrha were terrified. They could not imagine disturbing their mother's bones. It seemed wrong and disrespectful. Confused, they sat together in silence, pondering the oracle's strange words. Suddenly, Deucalion's eyes lit up with understanding. He realized that the goddess had given them a riddle. The mother she spoke of was not their human mother. She was Mother Earth herself. The bones she spoke of were not actually bones at all, but stones scattered across the muddy landscape around them. With relief and hope, they stood and began to gather stones from the ground. In silent reverence, they each took turns throwing the stones behind their backs, just as the goddess had instructed. As each stone touched the ground, an extraordinary event began to occur. The stones began to transform before their eyes, changing from cold, lifeless stones to warm, breathing human forms. The stones that Deucalion had thrown gradually grew into strong, sturdy men, and the gentle, nurturing women that Pyrrha had thrown transformed into gentle, caring women. Soon a whole new generation of people stood before them, marveling at the world of rebirth around them. Deucalion and Pyrrha became wise elders and guides to this new humanity, teaching them kindness, respect, and humility. Under their tender care, the earth once again became filled with communities, farms, and families, restoring life to the barren land. Over time, the people born on these stones spread out, creating villages, cities, and eventually entire civilizations, always carrying with them the lessons of humility and kindness that had come from the Great Flood. As humanity began to flourish again, mysterious creatures also appeared across the land and sea. Some were friendly, others terrifying, but all added wonder and danger to the human world. One of these creatures was the Cyclops, a giant easily recognized by the giant eyes in the middle of his forehead. Not all Cyclops were the same, though. Some were skilled craftsmen, skilled and intelligent, forging powerful weapons for the gods. Among these helpful Cyclopes were Brontes, Steropes, and Argus, who crafted Zeus's fearsome thunderbolt, Poseidon's mighty trident, and Hades' helmet of invisibility. These strong and gentle Cyclopes worked quietly underground, assisting the Olympians in their rule. But others of their kind were wild, ferocious, and dangerous, preferring to hide away from gods and men in dark caves deep in the mountains. These indomitable Cyclopes tended vast flocks of sheep, protecting their livestock from intruders. The most notorious of these wild Cyclopes was Polyphemus, a giant who lived alone on a deserted island. Polyphemus was huge and fearsome, so strong that he could easily break rocks. His story became legendary when the hero Odysseus accidentally stumbled into his cave after returning from the Trojan War. Polyphemus trapped Odysseus and his party inside his cave, blocking the entrance with a huge rock. In a desperate attempt to escape, Odysseus cleverly blinded the giant by driving a sharp, burning stick into one of his eyes. Polyphemus roared in pain, helplessly searching for the hero and his men. Finally, Odysseus escaped by hiding under Polyphemus's sheep, leaving them to the cunning of the angry and blind Cyclopes. Another powerful group of creatures roaming the earth at this time were simply called giants. Born of Gaia, these huge and aggressive creatures were strong enough to shape mountains and split the earth beneath their feet. They were fierce warriors, always eager to challenge even the gods. Eventually, their desire to overthrow the Olympians led to an epic war known as the Gigantomachy. Both gods and heroes were involved in this great war. Zeus wielded his thunderbolts, Athena wielded her mighty shield and spear. Apollo shot fiery arrows, and Heracles, the bravest of mortal heroes, fought them tirelessly. The giants fought fiercely, hurling huge rocks and uprooting entire mountain ranges. Each battle sent thunder across the sky and earth, shaking the foundations of the world. Finally, after a long and exhausting struggle, the Olympian gods, with the help of Heracles, were able to defeat these dangerous creatures. Many of the giants were trapped beneath volcanic mountains, where their restless struggles were said to have caused earthquakes and volcanic eruptions for generations.
Creatures to roam ancient Greece. Unlike other monsters, Medusa was once a beautiful young woman, admired by many for her beautiful hair and graceful appearance. Unfortunately, her beauty attracted unwanted attention. Poseidon, the god of the sea, pursued her and eventually confronted her in the sacred temple of Athena. Angered by this desecration of her temple, Athena punished Medusa, transforming her beauty into a terrifying curse. Medusa's soft hair turned into the tangles of poisonous snakes. Her gentle eyes became a deadly weapon. Anyone who dared to look directly into her face was instantly turned to solid stone. Afraid of her own power and abandoned by the world, Medusa fled to a distant place, living in solitude and bitterness, hiding in the darkness. Many warriors tried to defeat her and failed, instantly turning to stone and adding to the ghastly collection of statues scattered around her lonely lair. Finally, the heroic Perseus stepped forward, determined to succeed where others had failed. Under the guidance of Athena, who wanted to finally end Medusa's curse, Perseus advanced cautiously, using a brightly polished bronze shield as a mirror to avoid looking directly into her deadly gaze. With swift skill, he succeeded, delivering the final blow and ending Medusa's miserable existence. Perseus then hid her severed head safely in a protective bag, using its power to defeat other enemies along his journey. Far away, on the island of Crete, lurked another terrifying creature, the Minotaur, a terrifying monster, half man and half bull. The Minotaur began its existence through a curse placed on King Minos of Crete. The king's wife, Pasiphae, fell victim to a spell and gave birth to this terrifying beast. Frightened and ashamed, Minos sought the help of Daedalus, a talented inventor and craftsman. Daedalus built a huge maze called the Labyrinth, a confusing network of tunnels and corridors from which escape was impossible, and trapped the Minotaur within it. Every year, King Minos ordered Athens to send 14 young men, 7 young men, and 7 young women as sacrifices to feed to the Minotaur. This gruesome tribute continued for years, until finally Theseus, a brave prince of Athens, volunteered to face the monster himself. Arriving in Crete, Theseus met Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos, who immediately fell in love with him. Ariadne decided to help Theseus, giving him a ball of thread so that he could get out of the maze after facing the monster. Armed with courage and the gift of Ariadne, Theseus entered the dark labyrinth and finally encountered the demonic Minotaur, defeated him in a fierce fight, putting an end to the cruel sacrifice. Another monster that haunted the ancient Greek world was the fearsome Hydra, a huge snake with multiple heads, each filled with poisonous thorns. The Hydra lived in the dark swamps near the city of Lerna, fiercely guarding its territory. The creature had the terrifying ability that whenever one of its heads was cut off, 2 more would grow in its place, making it seem impossible to kill. This made the Hydra one of the most dangerous monsters in existence, a source of fear to all who lived nearby. Finally, the hero Hercules was tasked with defeating the Hydra as part of his 12 labors. As punishment, he was given a seemingly impossible task. Realizing that he could not defeat it alone, Hercules brought along his cunning nephew, Iolaus. During the battle, Hercules would cut off one of the Hydra's heads, and quickly, Iolaus would use a flaming torch to burn the stump, preventing new heads from growing. Working together with strength and intelligence, Hercules and Iolaus would eventually defeat the fearsome Hydra, making the swamps safe again. Finally, the last creature to halt mankind during this age was the terrifying Chimera. This monster had the body and head of a lion, a goat's head from behind, and a snake for a tail. It breathed blazing fire, destroying villages and causing terror in the countryside. No warrior dared to face it until the brave young hero Bellerophon arrived. With the help of the goddess Athena, Bellerophon harnessed the winged horse Pegasus and devised a daring plan. Riding Pegasus, he soared above the Chimera's fiery attacks, safely out of reach of its fire and claws. From this position, Bellerophon repeatedly struck the monster, using his agility and quick thinking to avoid harm. After a fierce battle, the Chimera fell, finally defeated, and peace returned to the lands it had terrorized.
The oldest and most famous of these heroes was Perseus, whose incredible story began long before his birth, with a prophecy told to his grandfather, King Acrisius of Argos. Acrisius was warned by the oracle at Delphi that his own grandson would one day bring about his downfall. Frightened and determined to avoid this fate, Acrisius locked his only daughter, Danae, inside a mighty bronze tower so that she would never have children. But even the strongest locks and thick walls could not stop Zeus, who, from his throne on Olympus, noticed Danae's beauty and tenderness. Transforming himself into a fountain of sparkling golden rain, Zeus penetrated the cracks in the tower and filled the dark room with a warm and comforting glow. From this magical encounter, Perseus was conceived, destined for greatness from birth. When Acrisius discovered that Danae had given birth despite his warnings, he was enraged, believing the prophecy to be coming true. Too afraid to anger the gods by directly harming his daughter and her child, he locked them in a sturdy wooden chest and pushed them into the raging sea, hoping that the cruel waves would carry them away forever. Zeus kept a close eye on them, guiding the ark safely to the shores of the small island of Seriphos. There, a kind and humble fisherman named Dictys, seeing them washed ashore, took Danae and Perseus in as his own family.
carefully raising the boy, teaching him courage, humility, and strength. Yet their peaceful life did not last. Dictys had a brother, Polydectes, the powerful and cunning king of the island, who soon noticed Danae's extraordinary beauty and wanted her for himself. Polydectes, knowing that Perseus would be fiercely protective of his mother, devised a clever plan to free the young hero from her clutches. Pretending to marry another woman, Polydectes threw a huge celebration, demanding that each guest bring him extravagant gifts. The proud yet poor Perseus had nothing to give. In front of the entire crowd, the king mocked him, passionately promising Perseus that he would bring the king whatever he wanted, even the impossible. Smiling wickedly, Polydectes demanded Medusa's head, knowing that no man who had faced her could ever survive. Perseus was brave, even though he realized that the task was hopeless without help. Fortunately, the gods had already decided to protect him. The goddess of wisdom, Athena, appeared to Perseus in a vision. She hated Medusa, who had offended her long ago, and eagerly helped Perseus in his quest. Athena gave him a polished bronze shield, so bright and clear that it acted like a mirror, protecting Perseus from Medusa's deadly gaze. The messenger of the gods, Hermes, gave Perseus a sharp sword capable of piercing anything, and with winged sandals he flew swiftly above the earth. They told Perseus that to discover the secret location of Medusa's hidden cave, he must first meet the mysterious Gaia, 3 ancient sisters who had 1 eye and 1 tooth. Following their instructions, Perseus quickly flew across the sky and reached Gaia's dark and distant home. The 3 old sisters lived in the darkness, constantly wandering around their shared eye and tooth. Perseus cleverly waited until the eye moved, then snatched it away, leaving the sisters helpless and frantic. They begged Perseus to return their precious eye, and he promised to do so only if they revealed the way to Medusa's hidden cave. Unable to refuse, they reluctantly gave him detailed instructions. And, true to his word, Perseus returned their eye and quickly set off for his final destination. With a pounding heart, Perseus reached Medusa's cave, a dark and terrifying cave surrounded by stone statues, each a cave a victim of her deadly gaze. Carefully entering, he used the shield, shining like a mirror made by Athena, not risking looking directly at Medusa's terrifying face. Slowly he approached, his heart trembling with fear and excitement. At the right moment, he swung his knife with all his strength, quickly removing Medusa's head. From her blood sprang the winged horse Pegasus, who immediately flew into the sky. Perseus quickly hid Medusa's head safely in a magic bag given to him by Athena, which could safely hold her deadly power. With his work done, Perseus headed home. But his expedition was not yet over. While flying over the distant shore, he found a beautiful princess named Andromeda, helplessly chained to a rocky cliff by the sea. Andromeda had been left there as a sacrifice, as punishment for her mother's pride that she was more beautiful than a sea nymph.
Angered by the insult, Poseidon sent a terrifying sea monster to destroy the kingdom. Perseus instantly realized that he had to help. Leaping from the sky, he confronted the monstrous creature. At the perfect moment, Perseus quickly uncovered Medusa's head, instantly turning the roaring beast into solid stone, frozen forever in the midst of the attack. Freed and grateful, Andromeda became Perseus's beloved wife, joining him on his journey home. Finally returning to Seriphos, Perseus found his mother tormented and pursued by Polydectes. Enraged and determined to protect her, Perseus boldly entered the king's throne room and, without hesitation, once again uncovered Medusa's head. Polydectes and his cruel followers were instantly turned to stone, ending their tyranny forever. Perseus brought peace and prosperity to the island by placing the kind-hearted fisherman Dictys on the throne. Finally, he handed the mighty head of Medusa over to Athena,
who proudly placed it on her shield to protect future generations of heroes. Shortly after Perseus's incredible expedition, another hero secretly began his story, Theseus, the son of Aegeus, king of Athens. As a young man, Theseus lived far from Athens, raised by his wise and courageous mother in the village of Aethra. When Theseus came of age, his mother revealed his royal heritage, sending him to Athens to meet his father. Determined to prove himself worthy, Theseus chose the difficult route overland, despite warnings of danger. On this journey, Theseus encountered many formidable enemies. He defeated cruel bandits who terrorized travelers, such as the giant Periphetes, known as the Club-Bearer, who attacked anyone who crossed his path. Theseus cleverly defeated him, seizing his powerful club. He then encountered Cineas, a brutal robber who tied his victims to crooked trees and left them to be torn apart. Theseus bravely outmaneuvered Cineas, defeating him in his own terrifying way. Later, he encountered the demon Cremonian sow, a wild beast that terrorized entire villages, and killed him in a fierce struggle. He also defeated the Sirens, who would kick travelers out of their seats and force them into the sea, and Procrustes, who would cruelly stretch or cut their victims to fit perfectly on their beds. With each battle, Theseus grew stronger and wiser. He finally reached Athens, already a hero famous throughout Greece. In Athens, Theseus found his father Aegeus upset with a terrible pact. Every year, Athens was to send 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete as sacrifices to the terrifying Minotaur, a monster, half man, half bull, trapped in a vast maze called the Labyrinth. Determined to end this horror, Theseus bravely volunteered to go to Crete, promising his father that if he succeeded, he would return with white sails instead of black ones to signal victory. Arriving in Crete, Theseus quickly caught the eye of Ariadne, the kind and courageous daughter of King Minos. Ariadne admired Theseus's courage and decided to help him. Secretly, she gave him a ball of plain thread, explaining that if he untied it when entering the labyrinth, he would be able to follow it after defeating the Minotaur. Under her guidance, Theseus bravely stepped into the dark, winding path, holding Ariadne's thread. Deep in the labyrinth, Theseus encountered the Minotaur in a huge creature whose fierce roar echoed through the tunnel. The stone walls echoed with a brutal battle as Theseus dodged powerful blows from the beast's horns. Striking quickly and carefully, Theseus defeated the monster, finally landing a decisive blow. After the Minotaur's defeat, Theseus quickly followed his path, holding Ariadne's thread, leading his fellow Athenians out of the labyrinth safely. Victorious, Theseus fled Crete with Ariadne by his side, returning home in glory. But as they neared Athens, disaster struck. In the excitement, Theseus forgot his promise to hoist the white sails. From a steep cliff, King Aegeus saw the black sails still flying, believing his son was dead. Heartbroken and overcome with grief, Aegeus threw himself from the cliff into the sea, naming the waters the Aegean Sea in memory of the grieving king. Theseus returned a hero, deeply grieved but determined to honor his father.
Zeus's jealous wife Hera attempted to end his life. She sent 2 deadly snakes into his cage, hoping that the child would be helpless against them. Yet even as a child, Heracles' incredible strength manifested itself. When Alcmene and Amphitryon entered the room, fearing the worst, they instead found the infant Heracles smiling, clutching lifeless snakes in his tiny fists. As Heracles grew older, his strength and bravery became legendary, but Hera's anger never abated. In a fit of jealousy, she cast a cruel spell on Heracles, causing him to temporarily lose his senses. In a terrifying frenzy, he tragically harmed those closest to him. When Heracles finally woke up from his madness and realized what he had done, he was devastated. Determined to be free, Heracles visited the Oracle of Delphi to learn how he could atone for his actions. The oracle sent him to King Eurystheus of Mycenae, who secretly worked with Hera to give Heracles 12 impossible tasks known as the 12 Labors, in the belief that they would surely defeat him. These labors pushed Heracles beyond human limits. His first task was to defeat the monstrous Nemean lion, a beast whose golden hide was so tough that no weapon could pierce it. Heracles found the lion in its cave and bravely confronted it. After a fierce battle, Heracles realized that no sword or spear could harm the lion, so he wrestled the giant beast with his bare hands, finally defeating it. Victorious, he wore its impenetrable skin as protective armor from then on. Next, Heracles faced the ferocious Lernaean monster, a huge serpent-like monster with many poisonous heads. Each time he cut off a head, 2 more sprouted in its place. Assisted by his cunning nephew Iolaus, Heracles fought fiercely. Each time he cut off a head, Iolaus used a flaming torch to quickly burn the wound, preventing new heads from growing. After a long, exhausting fight, the last head fell off, and the Hydra was finally defeated. Heracles' third attempt sent him after the elusive and sacred Serenian retreatant, a golden-horned deer, the favorite of the goddess Artemis. This creature was as fast as the wind, and Heracles spent an entire year carefully following it through mountains, forests, and valleys. Finally able to capture it without harm, Heracles respectfully showed it to Eurystheus, then promptly released it back into the forest, earning Artemis's reluctant admiration for his gentle strength. Next, Heracles encountered the ferocious Erymanthian boar, a huge wild animal that terrorized the local villages. After relentlessly chasing it through the snow-capped mountains, he captured the snarling beast alive and triumphantly brought it back to King Eurystheus, who had cowered in fear and hid in a bronze jar. For another labor, Heracles was ordered to clean the filthy Augean stables, where the waste of thousands of cattle had accumulated over the years. Realizing that brute force alone would not solve the problem, Heracles cleverly directed 2 nearby rivers through the stables, washing away the filth in a single day, astonishing all who witnessed the feat. Heracles then encountered the Stymphalian birds, monstrous birds with iron feathers that they hurled like arrows. Athena herself gave him a special bronze sound, the sound of which scared the birds out of their hiding places. Heracles quickly drew his bow and shot them as they flew into the sky. His next task was to capture the fearsome Cretan bull, a powerful beast that Poseidon had sent to punish King Minos. Heracles fought fiercely with the bull, forced it to surrender, and safely returned to Eurystheus, who trembled again at the sight of Heracles' strength. The 8th labor took Heracles to the land of Thrace, where King Diomedes kept ferocious, man-eating horses. Heracles bravely captured these fearsome creatures, fed them to their cruel master, instantly taming their ferocity. He then brought them back safely, once again proving his courage and ingenuity. Next, Heracles set out for the land of the Amazons to retrieve the beautiful belt of their mighty queen Hippolyta. Initially, the queen was willing to help, but Hera, in disguise, sowed distrust among the Amazons, which led to a fierce battle. Heracles reluctantly defeated the fierce warriors, successfully captured the belt, and completed his task. The 10th labor took Heracles to the west, beyond the known world, where he captured the cattle of Geryon, a giant creature with 3 heads and bodies. After an epic battle, Heracles slew Geryon and carefully drove the unruly herds across mountains, rivers, and seas, bringing them home in triumph. His final task was to collect the magical golden apples from the Garden of the Hesperides, a place fiercely guarded by a sleepless dragon named Ladon. After a long search, Heracles cleverly convinced the mighty Titan Atlas, who held the heavens on his shoulders, to retrieve the apples, while Heracles temporarily took on the burden himself. When Atlas returned, he refused to take the heavens back. Thinking quickly, Heracles tricked Atlas into holding the sky again and escaped with the precious apples.
Finally, Heracles faced his most difficult task yet, descending into the underworld to capture Cerberus, the fearsome three-headed guardian dog of Hades' realm. With courage and respect, Heracles approached Hades himself, who allowed him to attempt the challenge only if he did not use weapons. Relying solely on his great strength, Heracles wrestled Cerberus into submission, carefully bringing him back to the world of the living, to present him to Eurystheus, who was incredibly frightened. Shortly thereafter, Heracles safely returned Cerberus to Hades, concluding his last and greatest labor. Elsewhere, a hero named Jason assembled a band of brave adventurers known as the Argonauts to pursue the legendary Golden Fleece, a magical sheepskin item hidden across the sea in a distant place called Colchis. Jason's journey began because he was the rightful heir to the kingdom of Iolcus, which his cruel uncle Peleus had stolen. Fearing the loss of the throne, Peleus cunningly challenged Jason to retrieve the Golden Fleece, secretly hoping that Jason would never return from such a dangerous expedition. Determined and courageous, Jason recruited an extraordinary crew on his ship the Argo, one of the greatest heroes of his time. Among them were the mighty Hercules himself, the talented musician Orpheus, the fearsome hunter Atalanta, and the wise twin brothers Castor and Pollux. Their journey across unknown seas was fraught with incredible dangers. They narrowly avoided the deadly sirens, whose haunting songs could drive sailors mad, only to be saved by the enchanting music of Orpheus. They also encountered the terrifying clashing rocks, huge cliffs that would crush any passing ship. Jason cleverly sent a dove ahead, timing their journey, guiding the Argo safely to safety. Upon reaching Colchis, Jason's trials intensified. The powerful and cunning ruler King Aetus set Jason an almost impossible task as the price of the golden sheep. But Jason had an unexpected ally, Medea, Aetus's daughter, a powerful sorceress who fell in love with Jason as soon as she saw him. Medea used her magical skills to help Jason complete each challenge, giving him a magical potion that would protect him from the terrifying fire-breathing bulls he had to use. When he was ordered to plant dragon teeth in the ground, Medea warned him that they would become deadly warriors. Prepared by her, Jason cleverly pitted these warriors against each other, defeating them. Finally, Jason reached the sacred grove where the golden ram hung, guarded by a huge dragon that never sleeps. Once again, Medea's powerful magic helped him, gently lulling the beast into a deep sleep. Fight any longer, deciding to withdraw from the war until his honor was restored. Without Achilles, the Greeks suffered terribly. The eldest son of King Priam, the Trojan prince Hector, was noble, brave, and fiercely loyal. He led the Trojan army valiantly, repeatedly pushing the Greeks back.
Every Trojan warrior fought bravely behind Hector, who became their symbol of hope. Hector was more than just a warrior. He was a beloved son, husband, father, and a protector of his people. His wife Andromache and young son Astyanax watched anxiously from the city walls, hoping that he would return safely each day. The gods themselves were deeply involved, unable to remain neutral. Hera and Athena sided with the Greeks, still bitter over the previous verdict of Paris. Aphrodite, Apollo, and Ares supported Troy. Realizes the terrible truth, now knowing that Achilles' revenge will soon come. The news of Patroclus' death breaks Achilles' heart. Overwhelmed by grief and fueled by rage, Achilles finally returns to the battlefield, his rage overwhelming him. He charges into the Trojan army, sending the soldiers scattering in panic. Finally, Achilles stands before Hector, outside the great walls of Troy. Their duel is fierce, but the brave and noble Hector knows in his heart that he cannot overcome Achilles' wrath. After a desperate fight, Achilles strikes Hector, demanding revenge for his fallen friend. But Achilles' rage is not satisfied.
He dishonored Hector's body, tying it to the back of his chariot and dragging it around the city walls as a painful insult. The Trojans watched in horror and despair. Finally, with incredible bravery, King Priam himself secretly entered the Greek camp under cover of night. The old king knelt before Achilles and tearfully begged for the return of his son's body. Deeply moved by Priam's grief, Achilles relented, allowing Hector's body to be mourned with due respect. Still, Troy refused to surrender. Finally, Odysseus, known for his cunning intelligence, devised a brilliant strategy. The Greeks pretended to abandon the war and left behind only a huge wooden horse as a gift to Athena. Hidden inside the horse were the elite Greek warriors, including Odysseus himself. Believing the war to be over, the Trojans joyfully brought the huge horse back to their city as a victory trophy. That night, while Troy slept, Odysseus and his men silently emerged from their horse, opening the city gates to the Greek army that had been waiting in the shadows. Troy was quickly overwhelmed. The great city was consumed by fire, the warriors fought fiercely, and chaos spread throughout the streets. King Priam fell, Paris himself was killed, and the proud city, which had endured a siege for 10 years, collapsed in one night. Helen was reunited with Menelaus, who forgave her and brought her back to Sparta, while many Trojans survived or were captured. Thus, the great city of Troy finally fell, fulfilling the tragic prophecies that Paris had been carrying since its birth. Heroes rose and fell, tragedies bravely faced, and the world was changed forever. These incredible stories of Achilles' rage, Hector's courage, Odysseus' cunning, and the devastating cost of war became legends passed down through countless campfires for generations to come. With Troy destroyed, the Greek heroes finally set sail for home. But the gods, angered by the terrible destruction and dishonorable acts committed during the capture of Troy, sent a fierce storm that shattered the Greek fleet. Many of the heroes faced great hardship, none more than Odysseus, whose journey home lasted another 10 long and difficult years. Odysseus's journey became legendary.
His first major challenge was the island of the Cyclopes, where Odysseus and his men were trapped in the cave of Polyphemus, a giant one-eyed monster. Odysseus cleverly introduced himself as nobody, then blinded Polyphemus by thrusting a burning rope into his eyes. When the Cyclopes cried out for help, "Nobody blinded me," the other Cyclopes ignored him, allowing Odysseus and his men to escape under the belly of the monster's ram. Yet their suffering continued. Odysseus and his party encountered the sorceress Circe, whose spell turned her men into pigs. With the help of Hermes, Odysseus defended himself from her spell and bravely confronted Circe, convincing her to bring his men back. Odysseus stayed on Circe's island for a year, resting and recovering before setting off again. At Circe's behest, Odysseus journeys to the underworld himself, speaks with the prophet Tiresias, and receives warnings and guidance for the difficult journey ahead. His next challenge is to navigate safely past the deadly sirens, whose irresistible song drives sailors to their deaths. Remembering Circe's advice, Odysseus plugs his men's ears with wax and ties himself tightly to the mast of his ship, allowing him to hear the sirens' haunting music without risking their lives. Odysseus' ship then has to navigate 2 terrible dangers: Scylla, a 6-headed monster who snatches the sailors from their ship, and Charybdis, a terrifying whirlpool that swallows the entire ship. Choosing the lesser evil, Odysseus sailed his ship close to Scylla, tragically losing 6 brave men, but saving his ship and the rest of his crew. Eventually, Odysseus' exhausted crew landed on the island of the sun god Helios. Despite Odysseus' warnings, his hungry men slaughtered Helios' sacred cattle, provoking the god's wrath. When Helios sought revenge, Zeus sent a fierce storm that destroyed the ship and killed Odysseus' entire crew.
Only Odysseus survived, washed ashore on the island of the goddess Calypso, who held him captive for 7 years until Zeus finally ordered his release. After a long, lonely voyage, Odysseus finally reached his home island of Ithaca. But his struggle was not over. During his long absence, arrogant supporters gathered at his palace, trying to claim his kingdom and marry his faithful wife Penelope. With the help of his son Telemachus and loyal servants, Odysseus disguised himself as an old beggar and carefully planned his revenge. Finally, in a contest organized for Penelope to choose her husband, Odysseus single-handedly could string his great bow and shoot arrows with 12 rows of axes with perfect accuracy, astonishing all present. Abandoning his disguise, Odysseus, along with Telemachus and his loyal friends, defeated the supporters and reclaimed his home and throne. Finally, after 2 decades of being away, Odysseus was reunited with Penelope and her family, ending his long and tiring journey. His adventures, along with the epic struggles of Achilles, Hector, and all who fought bravely in the Trojan War, became a tale told over and over again around countless campfires. Their deeds, courage, ingenuity, and struggles have echoed through the ages, forever remembered as Greece's greatest and most enduring legends.
Destruction of Troy, the Greek heroes finally set sail for home. But the gods, angered by the terrible destruction and dishonorable acts committed during the capture of Troy, sent a fierce storm that scattered the Greek fleet. Many heroes faced great hardship, none more so than Odysseus, whose journey home lasted another 10 long and difficult years. Odysseus's journey became legendary. After sailing through the storm, Odysseus and his party first reached the mysterious island of the Lotus Eaters. There, Odysseus's men tasted the strange lotus fruit, causing them to forget their home, their families, and their longing to return to Ithaca. Determined to save his party, Odysseus had to force them back onto their ship, tying them up so they could not return to the land of dreams. Yet their suffering continued. Odysseus and his party finally reach a beautiful but dangerous island ruled by the sorceress Circe, daughter of Helios. Upon arrival, Circe invites them to her luxurious palace, providing them with food and drink. But her kindness hides dark magic. With the slightest touch of her wand, she turns Odysseus's party into pigs, imprisons them in a barn, and removes their humanity. Only one man is alert, returning to warn Odysseus. Determined to rescue his men, Odysseus is aided by the messenger god Hermes, who gives him a magical herb called molasses, which protects him from Circe's spell. Bravely confronting Circe, Odysseus forces her to swear to the gods that she will not harm him or his men. Impressed by Odysseus's courage and intelligence, Circe transforms her party back into human form. Odysseus and his party stay at Circe's palace for a year, regaining their strength and spirits, and set out again, guided by Circe's wisdom. Before returning home, Circe instructs Odysseus that he must seek guidance from the underworld. While journeying to Hades, the realm of the dead, Odysseus bravely encounters countless fallen warriors and the spirits of loved ones. There, he meets the blind prophet Tiresias, whose wisdom guides him to safety. Tiresias warns him of the deadly dangers ahead, especially against harming the sacred cattle of Helios. He also foretells Odysseus's safe return to Ithaca, though hardships still await. Returning from the underworld, Odysseus and his party face their next deadly challenge, the enchanting but deadly songs of the sirens. Circe warned him about these creatures, whose voices would irresistibly drag sailors to jagged rocks and certain death. Remembering Circe's advice, Odysseus carefully plugged his men's ears with wax. Still, he longed to hear the beautiful but dangerous songs of the sirens for himself. Thus, he ordered his men to tie Odysseus tightly to the mast and never let him go, no matter how much she begged.
As their ship passed the rocky islands, the sirens sang sweetly, promising wisdom, strength, and endless joy. Odysseus struggled, begged, and pleaded desperately, but his loyal men only tied him tighter, passing the deadly temptation unscathed and sailing safely.
Now a powerful young man. Together, they carefully plotted the suitor's defeat. Penelope finally proposes a contest, promising to marry the man who can string Odysseus's mighty bow and shoot arrows perfectly with 12-lined axe handles. None of the arrogant suitors could even string the mighty bow, mocking the old beggar who stepped forward to try. Yet Odysseus, in disguise, effortlessly shoots his familiar bow, perfectly hitting each axe handle. When the king sheds his disguise, the king's men watch in stunned silence, revealing themselves as the real king returns. With Telemachus and his loyal servants, Odysseus defeats each suitor, finally reclaiming his palace and family. Finally, after 2 decades away, Odysseus is reunited with Penelope, who tests him one last time to confirm his true identity. After passing his test, they embrace in tears of joy, finally reunited in love and peace. Odysseus returned home and his journey was complete. This extraordinary expedition, Odysseus's cunning escape, battles with monsters, and trials by gods and men became legendary. His struggles, courage, ingenuity, and unwavering determination have echoed through generations, stories told over and over around countless campfires. Along with the wrath of Achilles, the bravery of Hector, and the heroes of Troy, Odysseus's Odyssey remains among the greatest and most enduring legends of Greece. One of the most beloved stories of ancient Greece was that of Eros and Psyche, a love story so powerful that it touched the hearts of even the gods. Psyche was a mortal princess, known everywhere for her unparalleled beauty. She was so stunning that travelers from far and wide would travel just to catch a glimpse of her face. Eventually, word spread that Psyche was more beautiful than Aphrodite.
To show his face. Psyche's curiosity then turned to concern, and then to fear. Determined to learn the truth, Psyche waited one night until her husband was asleep. Grabbing an oil lamp, she carefully shone its light on his face. She was ready to face any monster at her side. But she was surprised. Instead of the monster, her husband was the incredibly handsome god Eros. Shocked, Psyche accidentally spilled hot oil on his shoulder. Eros woke up, betrayed and heartbroken. Without a word, he flies away, leaving Psyche alone and devastated. Desperate to win back Eros, Psyche seeks out Aphrodite, begging for forgiveness. But Aphrodite, still bitter, decides Psyche must earn her mercy. She sets the girl impossible tasks, each one to break her spirit. First, Psyche had to sort a huge pile of small grains, an impossible task for anyone. Fortunately, kind ants take pity on her, quietly tearing the grains apart while Psyche sleeps. Next, Aphrodite orders her to collect golden fleece from wicked sheep that no one can approach. Psyche stands by the river weeping and whispering something to the brook, which advises her to avoid the sheep and collect the wool caught in a nearby thorn bush. Then Aphrodite demanded water from a dangerous waterfall connected to the river Styx, which was guarded by a fearsome dragon. Psyche was almost forced to give up, but Zeus himself sent his eagle to collect water for her. Finally, Psyche had to go to the underworld for a box filled with beauty to Persephone. Psyche bravely set out, following the advice of the spirits along the way. But when she returned, curiosity overcame her, and she opened the box, immediately plunging into a deep, death-like sleep. Far away, Eros realized that Psyche was in trouble. Her heart still full of love, he quickly flew to her side, gently waking her with a tender kiss. Seeing their pure love, Zeus himself intervened. He granted Psyche immortality, which is the food of the gods, and welcomed her to live forever on Mount Olympus. Finally, Psyche and Eros were reunited, their love stronger than ever. The gods celebrated their reunion, And from that day on, the story of Eros and Psyche has lived on as a gentle reminder that true love can overcome any obstacle, even the jealousy of the gods.
Yet not all love stories end happily. Consider the heartbreaking story of Orpheus and Eurydice, a story that has been passed down from generation to generation to remind everyone of the incredible power and tragic fragility of love. Orpheus was not just any musician, he was the greatest of all Greeks, born of the sorceress Calliope and a mortal king of Thrace. From a young age, he played his lyre so beautifully that it seemed as if the earth itself would stop to listen. His melodies were so gentle and powerful that they were enough to calm birds from the sky, wild animals, and even flowing streams. People came from far and wide just to hear her play, believing that her music was a gift from the gods. Eurydice was a beautiful young woman, with a heart as tender as Orpheus's music. When Orpheus first saw her, he knew instantly that he would never love anyone else. Eurydice felt the same way, and not long after they were married. Their wedding day was a joyous celebration filled with song and laughter. Everyone present smiled warmly, certain that Orpheus and Eurydice would enjoy a lifetime of happiness together. But fate can be cruel. Shortly after their wedding, Eurydice was walking in a quiet meadow with her friends, picking flowers and smiling softly. Without warning, a hidden snake bit her in the ankle, injecting its deadly venom. In a moment, Eurydice's smile faded, silence taking its place as she fell to the ground. His friends rushed to his side, but it was too late. The news of Eurydice's tragic death spread quickly. The village was plunged into mourning, and no one grieved more deeply than Orpheus. Orpheus was completely broken. Nothing in the world was meaningless without Eurydice. He refused to play his music, and silence filled the air. The birds no longer sang. The rivers no longer flowed with joy, and even the wind seemed to stop whispering through the trees. Unable to bear his grief, Orpheus decided to do something no man had ever dared. He would journey to the underworld to bring Eurydice back. With only his golden melody in hand, Orpheus bravely descended into the darkness, determined to reclaim the woman he loved. He crossed the river Styx and carefully passed Cerberus, the fearsome three-headed dog that guarded the gates of the underworld. Normally fierce and alert, Cerberus fell silent, lulled by Orpheus's soft, mournful music. As Orpheus advanced further, every shadowy spirit and soul stopped to listen, momentarily forgetting their sorrows, captivated by the sweetness of his melody. Finally, Orpheus reached the throne room of Hades, the king of the underworld, and his queen, Persephone. The room was dark and solemn, and the two rulers watched him closely, their faces stern and solemn. Gathering all his courage, Orpheus stepped forward and began to play his melody. With each step, Orpheus's melody of heartbreak, longing, and endless love grew, eager to hear his footsteps, desperate to know that he was really there. As they neared the surface, a faint warm glow of sunlight appeared ahead, hinting at freedom and joy. But suddenly, Orpheus's mind filled with doubt. Was Eurydice really there, or had she been deceived? Overwhelmed with fear and longing, he turned for a moment, desperate for reassurance. In that moment, their eyes filled with love and sorrow. Eurydice whispered his name softly, but before he could reach out, her soul began to fade, slowly slipping back into the shadows. Orpheus screamed, desperately trying to grab her hand, but it was too late. Eurydice disappeared into the darkness, lost to him forever. Devastated, Orpheus returned to the upper world, but his heart remained trapped in the underworld with Eurydice. From that day on, he wandered alone, his music so filled with sorrow and longing that even the trees and rivers wept at his songs. Finally, towards the end of his life, Orpheus's soul voluntarily returned to the underworld. Finally, there, he found Eurydice, and they embraced, never to be separated again. Together, they remained side by side, walking silently through the shady meadows of the afterlife, their love finally unbreakable and eternal. The Trojan War itself began with love.
A love that gave birth to endless tragedy. Helen and Paris were bound by the irresistible magic of Aphrodite, a union that set kingdoms ablaze and changed the fate of Greece forever. It began with a fateful decision. Paris, a young prince of Troy, was appointed judge of a beauty contest between three powerful goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Each goddess offered him tempting prizes, but it was Aphrodite who promised him the most irresistible prize, the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris could not resist and awarded her the golden apple. That woman was Helen, queen of Sparta, whose legendary beauty had already won countless hearts. When Paris visited Sparta, Aphrodite fulfilled her promise, filling Helen's heart with an irresistible passion for the young prince. Unable to resist the goddess's powerful spell, Helen willingly left her husband, King Menelaus of Sparta, and sailed with Paris to Troy. When Menelaus saw Helen missing, his grief quickly turned to rage. Determined to bring back the queen and restore her honor, he summoned his brother, Agamemnon, and all the powerful kings of Greece. Together they gathered a vast army and sailed thousands of ships to Troy. Thus the sweet beginning of love quickly turned into a brutal, protracted war. A war that would consume heroes, kingdoms, and countless lives. Paris and Helen lived a fragile dream within the walls of Troy, their love shrouded in war and tragedy. As their passion deepened, Helen was plagued by guilt and sorrow. She often stood on the walls of Troy and looked down at the vast Greek army below, knowing that each warrior had fought for her. Memories haunted her dreams, and her love for Paris became a bittersweet solace, magnificent yet painful. Paris himself, though deeply devoted to Helen, often struggled under the heavy burden of their union. The Trojans began to see him as the cause of their suffering, blaming his impulsive choice for their pain and loss. Yet despite criticism and doubt, Paris remained steadfast in the truth, refusing to abandon the woman he loved, even as despair threatened to overwhelm them. Their bond endured through the chaos of war, until one fateful day when the Greek hero Philoctetes struck Paris with a poisoned arrow. As Paris lay dying, Helen was by his side, her heart breaking as she whispered tender words, begging him not to leave her. When Paris finally died, Helen's grief was overwhelming. The burning walls and broken gates of Troy seemed insignificant compared to the emptiness in her heart. After Troy finally fell, Menelaus entered the ruined city, ready to face his lost wife. When he finally stood before Helen, he raised his sword and prepared to attack. But when he looked into her eyes, the love he felt overcame his anger. Instead of harming her, he embraced her, silently forgiving all the pain and loss their love had caused. Together they returned to Sparta, but their love was no longer the same, deeply scarred by memories of war, loss, and regret. Yet no love story has been more poignant or enduring than that of Pyramus and Thisbe, two young lovers whose passion has inspired stories and legends for generations. They lived in the city of Babylon, separated from their neighbors only by a thin wall. Through a small crack in this wall, they exchanged whispers, secrets, and dreams, falling deeply in love without ever touching or even clearly seeing each other's faces. Their parents, bitter rivals, forbade them from meeting in public, turning their love into a forbidden, secret affair. Unable to bear their separation any longer, Pyramus and Thisbe hatched a daring plan to elope together. They decided to meet under a large mulberry tree outside the city walls, late at night. As darkness fell, Thisbe quietly slipped away from her home, arriving at their meeting place first, her heart racing with excitement and fear. While she waited under the tree, the shadows moved, and suddenly a lioness emerged from the darkness, her jaws stained with the blood of a recent kill. Terrified, Thisbe fled to a nearby cave, but as she ran, she tore off her veil. The lioness sniffed the veil and tore it off and ran out. After a while, Pyramus reached the mulberry tree. Seeing the blood-stained veil broke his heart. Certain that Thisbe had been killed, despair and guilt overwhelmed him. In agonizing grief, Pyramus drew his sword and plunged it into her heart under the mulberry tree, confirming that she could not live without his love. Thisbe, still trembling with fear, cautiously emerged from her hiding place and returned to their meeting place. There, under the pale moonlight, she found Pyramus lying on the ground, dying, his blood clinging to the roots of the mulberry tree. She knelt beside him and cried out in sorrow, gently holding him as his life passed away. In her overwhelming grief, Thisbe took the same sword and decided to join Pyramus in death rather than face life alone. As she breathed her last, their blood mingled with the ground, forever coloring the mulberry fruits from white to a deep, tragic red, an eternal reminder of their love, loss, and heartbreaking sacrifice. These powerful stories of love and loss touched all who heard them. Eros and Psyche showed the resilience of love. Orpheus and Eurydice expressed the unbearable pain of loss. Helen and Paris embodied the destructive power of love, while the fates of Pyramus and Thisbe taught the painful consequences of misunderstanding and forbidden desire. Now let us journey deeper into the mysterious and shadowy realm known to the ancient Greeks as the underworld, a hidden realm deep within the earth, ruled by the grim and shadowy god Hades, along with his gentle but distant queen Persephone. To the Greeks, this was not a distant heaven or an inaccessible place. It was a real, physical realm beneath their feet, accessible only to a few and feared by most. Hades himself was unlike any other Olympian god. He was calm, reserved, and serious, often depicted as a black-bearded figure seated on an ebony throne. Although mortals rarely uttered his name aloud, preferring to call him Pluto, meaning giver of wealth, or simply the Invisible One, Hades was not truly evil. Rather, he was seen as just, steadfast, and deeply committed to maintaining balance and order in the realm of the dead. Unlike his brother Zeus, who ruled the sky, and Poseidon, who ruled the sea, Hades preferred solitude, rarely venturing to Mount Olympus unless specifically summoned. His world was a world of silence and shadow, and his duties demanded patience and impartiality. He watched over the souls entrusted to his care with quiet authority, ensuring that each soul found its rightful place in the afterlife. Yet despite his terrifying role, he was also seen as a figure of justice. The Greeks believed that he presided over judgment after death, with both punishment and reward being meted out fairly, reflecting each person's actions in life. There were fewer stories directly involving Hades than his siblings, but those that did remained a strong mark on Greek mythology.
Perhaps the most notable of these was his marriage to Persephone,
Attracted to the gentle goddess of spring, Hades asked Zeus for permission to make Persephone his queen. Zeus neither openly granted nor denied the request, and Hades took this silence as approval. Thus, one bright afternoon, as Persephone was happily wandering through a meadow, the earth shook violently. He sped out of the earth in his dark chariot, drawn by mighty black horses, and carried the stunned goddess to his shadowy realm. Initially frightened, Persephone gradually began to accept and even embrace her role as queen of the underworld. Although the realm she ruled was dark and quiet, Persephone gradually brought a touch of grace, mercy, and tenderness that softened Hades' gloomy realm. She would make flowers bloom on the banks of the river Styx, providing small comforts to the passing souls. Their relationship, complicated and marked by sorrow due to Persephone's periodic absences, was often considered by the Greeks to be deep and genuine. Persephone, they believed, had come to love her sacred husband, and her presence at his side brought a quiet comfort and warmth to the cold chambers of Hades' palace. The underworld itself was a vast, mysterious landscape. After death, a soul's journey began, traveling through winding paths and shadowy tunnels, eventually arriving at the banks of the river Styx. This river was not just a boundary, it was a sacred promise. The gods themselves made sacred oaths to the Styx, for its waters were imbued with magical properties, ensuring that any promise sworn upon it could never be broken. Waiting on the banks of the Styx was Charon, the fearsome ferryman who silently guided souls across the dark waters. Souls unable to pay their fare, often a small coin carefully placed under the tongue by loved ones, wandered the riverbanks in eternal despair. Charon himself was a formidable figure, depicted as an old, stern man in tattered clothes, his eyes glowing like dim embers. He showed no sympathy, carrying out his task with cold efficiency. After crossing the river, the souls reached the terrible gates guarded by Cerberus, whose head was topped with 3 sharp, blazing eyes, burning with fiery alertness. Cerberus's role was of paramount importance. No living soul was allowed to pass without challenge. No soul was allowed to return to the mortal world without divine permission. His terrifying presence served as a perpetual warning. The underworld was a final destination, a boundary that could no longer be easily crossed. Cerberus's past stretched across a vast expanse of misty valleys, shadowy forests, and quiet, sad plains. Here, wandering souls drifted aimlessly, their memories slowly fading, destined for an eternity of quiet contemplation. Among these plains were the asphodel meadows, vast gray fields where ordinary souls, those who were neither exceptionally good nor evil, spent eternity in quiet neutrality. Yet the Greeks also spoke of bright and dark realms within the realm of Hades. For heroic souls and the truly virtuous, a beautiful paradise known as Elysium awaited. Elysium was a place of comfort, rest, and joy, filled with gentle breezes, fragrant flowers, and golden sunlight. Here heroes like Achilles, Hector, and Heracles rested forever, free from pain, sorrow, and fear. But for souls who had committed terrible deeds against the gods or humanity, the fearful Tartarus dwelt even deeper beneath Hades' palace. It was an abyss filled with eternal darkness and endless punishment. Titans and mortals who dared to disobey or insult the gods suffered here. Among the famous prisoners were Sisyphus, condemned to forever push a rock uphill so that it would endlessly roll back down. Tantalus, eternally thirsty and hungry, stood in water that moved away every time he reached the bottom, under heavy fruit branches that moved away every time he climbed up, and Ixion, tied to a perpetual spinning wheel, was immersed in fire. The Greeks also described several strange rivers within this mysterious underworld. Besides the Styx, the river Lethe was perhaps the most significant.
Its waters cause complete oblivion,
enabling souls to abandon memories of earthly sorrows and regrets and prepare for a new life in some beliefs related to reincarnation. Another river, the Acheron, marked the border of the underworld and contained the tears and anguish of newly arrived souls. The Cocytus, the river of lamentation, echoed with cries of eternal grief, while the river of burning fire, the Phlegethon, flowed along the edge of Tartarus, reinforcing eternal punishment. Beyond the rivers and meadows, the underworld also had special landmarks and mysterious places. The palace of Hades itself was said to be magnificent but terrifying, made of dark stone and metal, lit by a terrifying blue flame. Around it grew sacred groves of dark poplars and willows, speaking softly in a whisper in an eternal twilight. Nearby was the judgment seat, where 3 impartial judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aika, reviewed each soul's earthly deeds, determining their eternal place within the vast landscape of the underworld. To the Greeks, the underworld was more than just a realm of fear. It was a reflection of the complexity, principles, and balance of life. They saw Hades not as evil, but as necessary, stern, and impartial, ensuring that justice and fairness continued after life's end. The underworld taught them that life and death were inextricably linked, part of an endless cycle that they could never fully understand, yet deeply respected. While our fires crackle softly and the stars watch silently from above, let us journey deeper into the untold stories of Greek mythology, stories that whisper wisdom rather than shout, gently reminding us of the hidden magic of kindness, humility, and a simple life. Let's start with the story of Baucis and Philemon, an elderly couple remembered for their kindness and generosity. They lived long ago in a simple cottage on the edge of a small village, surrounded by fields, trees, and simple country paths. Their home was simple, with wooden walls and a thatched roof. Although they had few material possessions, they were rich in kindness and hospitality. Their days were simple but fulfilling. Together they tended their garden, growing vegetables, herbs, and colorful flowers. Every evening they sat by the fire and enjoyed each other's company. One afternoon, 2 travelers arrived at their village, dressed in simple clothes and looking tired from their travels. Unbeknownst to anyone, these visitors were Zeus, the king of the gods, and the messenger Hermes, disguised as ordinary people. They knocked on the door of each villager in search of shelter and food, but each door was firmly closed in their faces. Finally, Zeus and Hermes arrived at the modest home of Baucis and Philemon. Without hesitation, the elderly couple invited the travelers inside. Philemon set chairs by the fireplace, while Baucis prepared a meal with what he had on hand: fresh bread, honey, fruit, and wine mixed with water. He apologized for the simplicity of their offerings, but the visitors were grateful for their warmth and generosity. As they talked and shared their meal, Baucis noticed something unusual. No matter how many cups of wine he poured, the jug remained full. He looked at Philemon, who had also witnessed the miracle. Realizing that their guests were no ordinary travelers, the couple felt amazed and humbled. Then Zeus and Hermes revealed themselves in a flash of light. Baucis and Philemon knelt down in reverence in the presence of the gods. Zeus warmly praised their kindness, but warned them that the villagers would suffer punishment for their lack of hospitality. Soon a flood would sweep away the village, but Zeus assured the old couple that they would be saved. He granted them one wish in return for their generosity. After exchanging a glance, Philemon replied softly, "Let us live together until the end of our lives. When the time comes, let us leave this world together, so that no one is left alone." Zeus happily granted their wish. He ordered them to climb a nearby hill and look down at the floodwaters engulfing the village. When they returned, their small cottage had been transformed into a beautiful temple.
Baucis and Philemon became caretakers of this temple, welcoming visitors as they always did. Years passed peacefully, until one day, standing together outside the temple, they began to feel their bodies change. The feet took root in the ground and they slowly transformed. Baucis turned into a linden tree and Philemon into an oak tree. Their branches stretched towards each other, entwined in a permanent embrace. The villagers later visited these two trees, telling stories of how the withered leaves reminded them of the kindness and generosity that defined Baucis and Philemon's lives. Now, let's move on to another story, that of King Midas. Midas ruled the ancient kingdom of Phrygia, a prosperous region renowned for its wealth and fertile lands. Widely known for his fascination with gold, Midas surrounded himself with luxury, riches, and luxurious comforts. Despite his vast wealth, his desire for gold and wealth seemed impossible to satisfy, becoming almost an obsession that defined his every thought. One day, Midas's servants found an old man named Silenus lost near the palace grounds. Silenus was a companion and advisor to Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, revelry, and festivities. Silenus had become separated from Dionysus's traveling party and was wandering alone, tired, and disoriented. Midas's servants recognized him as an important person and immediately brought him to the palace. King Midas warmly welcomed Silenus, viewing him as an honored guest. For several days, Silenus was provided with comfortable rooms, delicious food, and good wine. Midas himself made sure that Silenus was cared for and comfortable, aware of his special status as Dionysus's beloved friend and advisor. Finally, Dionysus learned that Silenus had been found and cared for generously by Midas. The god felt deep gratitude to the Phrygian king for his kindness and hospitality. Dionysus soon arrived at the palace to personally thank Midas and presented him with a reward, saying, without hesitation, Midas excitedly asked that everything he touched be instantly turned into pure gold. Dionysus paused, realizing the possible consequences and urging Midas to reconsider carefully. But Midas was blinded by excitement and refused to listen. Seeing the king's determination, Dionysus sighed softly and granted his wish, silently warning that not all gifts are as they seem. The next morning, Midas eagerly tested his newfound power. He touched a plain wooden chair, instantly turning it into shining gold. Overjoyed, he wandered the palace gardens, transforming flowers, plants, stones, and even statues into gleaming gold. His initial excitement was boundless, and he was certain that he was the luckiest man alive. But soon the excitement began to fade. When Midas sat down to eat, reality quickly set in. He lifted a piece of fresh bread to his mouth, but as soon as it touched his lips, the bread turned to solid gold, impossible to bite. Frustrated and confused, he tried to sip water from a cup, but as soon as it touched his lips, the liquid also turned to solid gold. Soon panic set in. Every food and drink turned to useless metal, and Midas realized with horror what he had done. Before he could fully comprehend his situation, his beloved daughter entered the room, worried about her father's strange behavior. She ran to comfort him, and in his distress, Midas instinctively reached out to hug her. Instantly, he turned into a golden statue, frozen in the same expression of amazement. Now, heartbroken and desperate, Midas recognized the truth. His wish had turned into a terrible curse. Midas immediately began to beg for forgiveness from Dionysus and pray for the opportunity to undo this tragedy. Hearing the king's desperate cry, Dionysus reappeared, seeing the remorse and pain clearly reflected on Midas's face. Moved by pity and compassion, Dionysus gently ordered Midas to travel to the Pactolus River, which flowed slowly through the Phrygian countryside. There, the king had to wash his hands and body in the clear waters to get rid of the golden touch. Without hesitation, Midas quickly went to the riverbank, dipping his hands in the cold water. When he bathed himself, the curse lifted, and his humanity returned. He ran back to his palace and saw his daughter return to normal. The curse was reversed. From that day on, the sand of the Pactolus River shimmered softly with tiny pieces of gold, a subtle reminder to all who passed by of King Midas's painful lesson. Life, love, and simple pleasures were far more valuable than gold. Next, let's talk about Chiron, a centaur who was different from all others of his kind. In Greek mythology, centaurs were typically depicted as rough, wild creatures, half man and half horse, known more for their aggressive behavior and love of wine than for kindness or wisdom. But Chiron was different. Born from the union of the titan Cronus and the nymph Philyra, Chiron inherited a sense of calm and gentleness that none of his fellow centaurs possessed. Unlike most centaurs, who roamed the wild forests and caused trouble, Chiron lived quietly on Mount Pelion in the peaceful mountains of Thessaly. He built a home there, a simple cave surrounded by forests and clear mountain springs, where he could study and teach in peace. Chiron was a man of great wisdom and knowledge, especially skilled in medicine, astronomy, hunting, music, and prophecy. He was known not only as a teacher, but also as one of the greatest advisors and guides of ancient Greece. Heroes, kings, gods, and goddesses all respected and admired Chiron for his fairness and intelligence. Many legendary heroes came to Mount Pelion to learn from him. Achilles, who later became the greatest warrior of Greece, was one of Chiron's favorite students. Under Chiron's watchful eye, young Achilles learned the skills of war, hunting, and healing. More importantly, Chiron taught Achilles about courage and mercy, which the young hero carried with him for the rest of his life. Chiron also mentored Jason, the famous leader of the Argonauts who set out in search of the Golden Fleece. He guided Jason in the ways of leadership, showing him how to unite people and inspire loyalty. Perseus, the brave hero who defeated Medusa, was another of his students. Under Chiron's tutelage, Perseus learned to trust himself and think calmly in times of danger. But perhaps the most famous was Heracles' relationship with Chiron, whom many know as Hercules. Known for his incredible strength, Heracles often went to Chiron for advice or training. The centaur always welcomed him warmly, freely sharing his home and knowledge. However, one day a tragic incident occurred. Heracles was invited to share a feast with another centaur named Pholus, who had opened the special jug of wine. The smell of the wine attracted the other centaurs, who became aggressive and dangerous in their desire to drink it. A fierce battle quickly broke out between Heracles and these unruly centaurs. During the chaos, Heracles shot an arrow to defend himself, unaware that a stray arrow had accidentally struck Chiron, who was standing some distance away watching the fight. Tragically, this arrow was laced with deadly hydra venom, a poison powerful enough to defeat any creature. Although Chiron was immortal, the venom caused him endless, unbearable pain. No medicine or potion could ease the pain of this wound. Despite his immense suffering, Chiron was patient and dignified. He endured this endless torment in silence for a long time. Finally, a rare opportunity to ease his suffering came. At that time, Prometheus, who had given fire to man, was suffering terrible torment as punishment from Zeus. Prometheus was chained to a mountain where an eagle would come to torment him every day. Chiron, who knew what endless torment was like, deeply sympathized with Prometheus's plight. Shown by compassion, Chiron went to Zeus and offered to exchange his immortality for Prometheus's release. Impressed and moved by the centaur's selfless choice, Zeus accepted the offer. Prometheus was freed, and Chiron's suffering was finally alleviated. To honor Chiron's great sacrifice and kindness, Zeus placed the centaur among the stars, creating the constellation we know today as Sagittarius. And so Chiron found a new kind of immortality, shining quietly in the night sky to guide travelers, hunters, and heroes who look up. Finally, let us recall the bittersweet story of Echo and Narcissus, a tale from ancient Greek mythology that warns of the dangers of pride and arrogance, but also captures the sorrow of unrequited love. Echo was a lively young nymph who lived in dense forests and on mountain slopes. She was cheerful, outgoing, and especially known for her lively chatter. Echo loved to talk and tell stories, often delighting her friends with her endless conversations. Her voice was pleasant and musical, and those who heard it were admired. However, Echo's talent for oratory eventually got her into trouble. Zeus, the king of the gods, often visited the forests and mountains, spending time with the various nymphs who lived there. His wife Hera became suspicious of his frequent disappearances and decided to investigate. When Hera approached, Echo, always eager to please, would delight the goddess with long conversations, giving Zeus time to escape unnoticed. When Hera finally realized that Echo's conversations were designed only to help Zeus escape, she became enraged. She decided that Echo should be punished. With a simple but harsh command, Hera took away Echo's ability to speak freely, allowing her only to repeat the last few words spoken by someone else. Echo was deeply saddened by this punishment. No longer able to express her thoughts or feelings, she hid within herself. She spent her days quietly wandering through the forests and mountains, avoiding contact with others. Her once joyful life turned into one of loneliness and silence. One day, as Echo was quietly wandering through the forest, she saw a young man named Narcissus. Narcissus was extraordinarily handsome, admired by both men and women wherever he went. His attractive appearance attracted many admirers who hoped to win his affection. Yet Narcissus was not interested in anyone else, believing that he was above ordinary people, too perfect and special for ordinary affection. Echo was immediately captivated by Narcissus. She watched him from afar, longing to approach him, but knowing that she would not be able to speak at first. One afternoon, as Narcissus was walking alone through the forest, she felt that someone was watching her. Curious, she called out, "Is anyone there?" Echo, hiding behind the trees, could only respond softly, "There is someone there." Narcissus frowned, confused, and called out again, "Come closer." Echo came out eagerly, happily repeating, "Come closer." But when Narcissus saw Echo, she immediately became cold and contemptuous. He had no interest in Echo's shy but hopeful affection. He cruelly told her, "Leave me alone. I will never love you." Echo felt her heart break. She slowly repeated his harsh words, "Never love you," as she retreated deeper into the forest. From that day on, she hid in solitude, fading away until nothing remained but her faint voice, which echoed softly through the forests, mountains, and caves when anyone spoke. As for Narcissus, he moved on, indifferent to Echo's sorrow, still convinced that no one was worthy of his love. One day, during another solitary walk, Narcissus found himself thirsty and stopped by a clear, calm pond deep in the forest. He knelt down to drink, but suddenly stopped when he saw his reflection for the first time. Narcissus was completely captivated, falling in love with the beautiful face that stared back at him. Not realizing that this beautiful reflection was only his own, he stared endlessly, lost in fascination. Day after day, Narcissus stood by the pool, unwilling to let go of the beauty he saw in the water. He ignored food, rest, and the world around him, completely immersed in his obsession. Every time he reached out to embrace the reflection, it disappeared behind the waves. Yet he desperately tried, hoping that he would somehow grasp this elusive beauty. Finally, weakened by hunger, thirst, and sorrow, Narcissus slowly withered away by the pool, yearning for a love he could never hold. When he breathed his last, the nymphs and animals of the forest mourned his death, expressing their sorrow that this beauty had caused so much sorrow. In the place where Narcissus died, a delicate flower bloomed, in soft shades of white and gold. To this day, we call this flower the narcissus or daffodil, and it continues to bend its petals toward its reflection, forever remembering Narcissus' tragic fate. As for Echo, although she never regained her voice or physical form, her quiet echo lingers in the forests and mountains, softly repeating the words of travelers and mountaineers. Her presence serves as a subtle, abiding reminder of the sorrow caused by unrequited love, pride, and arrogance, and the importance of kindness to others. These quiet stories, shared gently under the stars, carry a message of humility, compassion, and quiet strength. These kinds of stories may not boast epic battles or mighty gods, yet their lessons linger gently, reminding us that magic, wisdom, and beauty can be revealed in the quiet, even in small, simple moments. And as we share them tonight, we become part of an endless circle, where stories whispered long ago by our predecessors are retold and gently passed on to the next generation. As we reach the end of our long, fascinating journey through Greek mythology, let us take a moment to consider what is truly special about these stories. After thousands of years of being whispered around ancient fires, why do they still capture our hearts and minds so completely? What is it about these ancient myths that seems so powerful and deeply human, no matter how much time has passed? The answer lies in part in their extraordinary ability to reflect on what it means to be human. These stories, though set in a world of gods, heroes, monsters, and the supernatural, are deeply familiar. They touch on timeless truths about love and loss, courage and fear, pride and humility, feelings and experiences that we can all recognize and understand. Think of the pride of Achilles, the mercy of Prometheus, or the courage of Perseus. These are not just distant ancient figures. They are parts of ourselves, mirrors that reflect our own strengths and weaknesses, our dreams and disappointments. Myths allow us to explore the deepest mysteries of life, providing comforting explanations and beautiful stories about where we came from, why we exist, and what happens when our time is up. These myths gently remind us that humans have always sought answers to these questions, just as we still do today. They tell us that we are part of something much larger and more mysterious than ourselves, encouraging us to face life's uncertainties with courage, hope, and humility. In a sense, these myths never really get old. Yes, their details may change, but at their heart, they are as relevant today as they were when they were first told around campfires thousands of years ago. They remind us that no matter how advanced our world has become, our essential nature, the way we love, fear, dream, and struggle, hasn't changed much. And perhaps most importantly, these myths help us feel connected. As you listened, you might have imagined that you were sitting next to ancient Greek storytellers, feeling the warmth of the fire on your skin, listening to these timeless tales. It's a beautiful thought that across thousands of years, cultures, and continents, stories still have the power to unite us, helping us remember that, at our core, we are not so different. So the next time you look up at the stars or gather around a fire, think about these stories. Brave Perseus confronts Medusa. Thoughtful Prometheus steals fire. Orpheus risks everything for love. These myths are not just ancient stories. They are living mirrors, gently reflecting who we are and who we can become. Now, together, we have spent some time exploring this vast, beautiful world of Greek mythology. And whether you are following along closely or listening quietly in the background, I really hope you have enjoyed the journey. Let me know below which myth or character stood out to you. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed our storytelling today, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our next foray into mythology, history, or mystery. Thanks for spending your time here, and until next time, stay curious and stay safe.